Since time immemorial, the Black Hand have walked willingly in my shadow. The first to see the truth of my prophecy, the first to take up arms in its defense. If you are to understand the true nature of Nod, you must master their ancient ways, glean the source of their unblinking devotion, and then twist it to your will. The Black Hand can be best described as a cult within a cult, and the group is believed to be almost as old and ancient as Kane himself. While there isn't any hard evidence to support the Black Hand being that old, the cult has certainly been at work making impacts on the world long before the appearance of Tiberium on Earth. There was a secretive organization calling themselves the Black Hand that was formed in Serbia in the early 1900s by officers in the Royal Serbian Army. This group was instrumental in the assassination of Alexander Obrenović and Queen Draga of Serbia, ending the Obrenović dynasty. The organization continued to operate behind the scenes and provided support to other groups and movements, including one called Young Bosnia. The group would become famous for the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria in June 1914. This would become the spark that would lead to the outbreak of World War I. While some believe that the Black Hand of Nod and the Serbian Black Hand are two different groups, it seems that they are actually one and the same, especially given the fact that Kane established his Temple Prime headquarters in Sarajevo, the very town that Archduke Ferdinand was in when he was assassinated, as well as one of the Black Hand's most well-known leaders, Anton Slavic, being a Bosnian Serb by birth. As Nod grew over time as an underground power, the Black Hand was still shrouded in secrecy, even amongst those within the Brotherhood. The members of the cult acted as internal police and religious figures, enforcing Kane's teachings and doling out harsh punishments to those who would dare question the Prophet's vision. Those not individuals with exceptional devotion and skill would be singled out and recruited to join the ranks of the cult, trained in the spiritual aspects of Nod as well as warfare. Once their training is complete, they have access to the most advanced and powerful equipment in the Brotherhood arsenal. At the outbreak of the First Tiberium War in 1995, when the Brotherhood was actively engaged with the GDI, primarily in Africa and Europe, the Black Hand still remained hidden in the shadows. However, that would change near the end of the war, when GDI troops would come face to face with the elite cult. One of the secret projects that the Brotherhood was working on during the war was known as Project Regenesis. This was a research initiative by Nod scientists to create the next generation of humans by injecting them with Tiberium. The Brotherhood even kidnapped GDI scientists such as Dr. Mobius and forced them to work on the project, as it was highly important to Kane, who believed that humanity's future lay in the synthesis of humans and Tiberium. Because of its importance, the Black Hand, led by General Gideon Ravachol, oversaw the security of the laboratories and bases housing this research. Black Hand soldiers were outfitted with some of the most advanced technology that Nod had at the time, from well-armored heavy weapon soldiers to snipers to chem warriors. And the most deadly of all, stealth soldiers, able to cloak themselves and become practically invisible. GDI assigned Commando Nick Havoc Parker with the task of rescuing their scientists and shutting down the project. Parker succeeded in his mission, killing Ravachol and destroying the main lab at the Nod Temple in Cairo. Elements of the Black Hand would also be the last line of defense at Temple Prime in Sarajevo, giving their lives for Kane as he made his final stand against GDI, with his supposed death fracturing the Brotherhood and bringing an end to the First Tiberium War. The Brotherhood would spend the next 30 years recovering from their defeat at the hands of GDI. During this time period, a Nod soldier by the name of Anton Slavic began rising through the ranks. Slavic still believed in the Prophet Kane's vision for humanity's future, unlike other Nod leaders who wished to stray away from that vision in order to selfishly gain more power for themselves.
It's an honor to have you back.
Traitor.
By the time he had become leader of the Black Hand, the Brotherhood had split into two primary factions. those that supported Slavik, and those that supported General Hassan, who was really just a puppet leader for GDI. Hassan and his forces would manage to capture Slavik and attempt to publicly execute him, but he would be rescued by members of the Black Hand led by one Oksana Christos. This would be the start of open conflict between the two Brotherhood factions. Slavik would ultimately achieve victory over Hassan, capturing him and publicly executing Hassan right as Kane would reveal to the Brotherhood that he was in fact still alive. With Kane's return to the living, the Second Tiberium War would commence. Slavik and the Black Hand would continue to do important missions throughout the war, such as retrieving the Tacitus for Kane to use in order to complete a world-altering missile. However, Kane would go on to be defeated by GDI Commander Michael McNeil at the missile launch facility in Cairo, Egypt. With the second disappearance and possible death of Kane, Anton Slavik again had to fight for control of the Brotherhood and prevent it from splitting apart. In an attempt to help in these efforts, he repaired and reactivated Nod's AI, Cabal. However, the AI went rogue and wiped out all other Nod leaders in the inner circle, leaving Slavik the only survivor. This was thanks to his reliance on his own personal Black Hand human guards instead of using cyborgs. The Brotherhood deployed elite cadre of the Black Hand in order to bolster its ranks in the fight with Cabal's cyborg army. With the help of GDI, Slavik and the Brotherhood would go on to defeat Cabal, and keep the Brotherhood united under Kane's philosophy of one vision, one purpose. However, in becoming supreme leader of the Brotherhood, Anton Slavik would reveal himself as a prelate of the Black Hand, which would give the once shadowy cult within Nod a more public profile, a profile that many within the cult did not want. Unsurprisingly, many within the Black Hand chafed at the cult's new public profile, with internal dissent quickly escalating into a series of impassioned public confrontations between Slavic loyalists and those who claimed the Nod leader to be a traitor of the Black Hand's true purpose. From within the anti-Slavic ranks, there soon rose a figure who could stand toe-to-toe with Slavik, an impassioned and popular preacher by the name of Brother Marcion. With leaders chosen and battle lines drawn, what had started as a doctrinal disagreement had quickly escalated into a schism that threatened the very existence of Nod itself. Attempts by the Inner Circle to heal the rift within the cult failed, culminating in the assassination of Slavik at the hands of one of Marcion's fanatical followers. Marcion, now leader of the Black Hand, went with his followers into a self-imposed exile in the Australian outback. There, Marcion would reorganize the Black Hand into a highly disciplined theocratic army, one that was dedicated to spreading the truth and purity of the Tiberium prophecy. But in doing so, Marcion denounced Kane as a false prophet and heretic, claiming that only he himself knew the true path to salvation. When Kane emerged from stasis in 2034, he immediately set to work reunifying the Brotherhood. Essential to his plans was bringing the Black Hand back into the fold. With the help of his new powerful AI called Legion, Kane was able to defeat Brother Marcion's army, capturing him and forcing him to renounce all the blasphemies he spouted against Kane. With the Black Hand now back in the Brotherhood, they would continue to perform various missions around the world, as well as acting as the religious wing of the Brotherhood, leading up to and through the Third Tiberium War. These missions included the destruction of the Liquid Tiberium research facility in the Australian outback, shortly after the Black Hand's return to the Brotherhood, as well as the capturing of a GDI scientist named Dr. Giraud from a spaceport in Chile. This was so that the Doctor could aid the Brotherhood in the development of their Tiberium-based weapons. Even the invasion of the Skrin did not deter the Black Hand from battle, and though the Brotherhood would ultimately go on to lose the Third War, they had aided Kane in accomplishing his primary goal of securing one of the Skrin's threshold towers, paving the way for the Prophet to unlock the secrets of this advanced alien race, in order to bring the Brotherhood that much closer to the prophecy of Ascension. The arsenal of the Black Hand has changed over the many years and wars since the Brotherhood's existence. In the past, they would make use of cutting-edge technology, such as chameleon stealth suits and bioweapons near the end of the First Tiberium War. Since then, however, the organization has been wary of immediately adopting new technologies. A good example being Slavik refusing to use cyborgs as personal bodyguards, which led to all other members of the Inner Circle being easily killed during Cabal's rebellion. On the battlefield, the cult uses highly trained, heavily armored troops. Some are armed with powerful machine guns, while others make use of flame weaponry, allowing them to carve a path of death and destruction in their wake. While Nod was able to rebuild their air force after the Second Tiberium War, the Black Hand preferred not to make much use of it, except in certain situations. They also don't make use of shadow teams and other stealth units, as they prefer people to witness the destruction they cause in order to sow fear and doubt in the minds of their opponents. To that end, the Black Hand have access to exclusive infantry, vehicles, and equipment that they utilize to accomplish their missions. While the Nod Confessor has been an increasingly common sight on the battlefield since the Second Tiberium War, it was not until the establishment of Brother Marcion's post-Slavic Black Hand that these armored priests were considered effective combatants in their own right. Seeking to bolster his own standing as a pure religious figure, untainted by the purported heresy of his predecessor, Marcion took the radical step of replacing his standard Nod militant advanced guard with regiments of combat-ready confessors, armed, as always, with machine guns and psychotropic hallucinogenic grenades, all the better to spread his word and put his enemies to the sword. Confessor Cabal infantry are some of the best on the battlefield. Well armed and armored, they can take on most basic enemy infantry head-on. Typically, a Nod division will have a single confessor to act as a squad leader, but for the Black Hand, the confessors are the entire squad. Their very presence on the battlefield even inspires other Nod soldiers, such as militia and militant rockets, to fight harder and with more fervor for the Brotherhood. The confessors also come equipped with hallucinogenic grenades, which creates confusion among enemy infantry when exploding nearby, causing them to turn and fire on each other for a short time. Their ballistic machine guns can also be upgraded to become fast-firing energy weapons thanks to a research upgrade called Charged Particle Beams, which also applies to Shredder turrets as well. Whereas other Nod divisions can typically be seen with a confessor amongst their squad's ranks, for the Black Hand Cabal and militant rocket squads, a Black Disciple replaces the confessor. This makes Black Hand infantry squads an even greater threat to infantry fielded by both GDI and the Skren. The Disciple being able to utilize his flamethrower to clear garrison buildings and demolish base structures. Of course, they can also field a full squad of Black Hand flame troops to more effectively decimate enemy infantry units and structures, as well as being more resistant to damage. The downsides of these troops being their slower movement speed. All flame weapons in the Black Hand arsenal can even be upgraded with a technology called Purifying Flame, further increasing the damage that Black Hand infantry, disciples, flame tanks, and purifiers do to enemy infantry, vehicles, and structures. One can tell when the upgrade is applied in the color change of the flames themselves, with purifying flames being white and blue. Despite their loathing of using soulless machines, the Black Hand understand the importance of having a dedicated anti-aircraft vehicle. This culminated in the development and adoption of the Mantis, a small drone capable of swiftly destroying aircraft that get within its range. Despite being an effective AA vehicle, it is best for a commander to use them in groups, as their armor is quite thin, but it is an overall inexpensive vehicle to build and deploy to the battlefield. The father of what would later become known in the Nod arsenal as the Avatar was the Purifier. According to the intelligence database, a significantly more primitive precursor to Nod's Avatar, the Purifier was inspired by Brother Marcion's first-hand urban combat experience during the Second Tiberium War. After using an improvised flamethrower to rout entrenched GDI forces, saving the rest of his regiment from certain death, Marcion was declared a hero of Nod and saw his very presence have an inspirational effect on the Nod militants that surrounded him. The Purifier was developed to recreate that experience, representing Marcion on the battlefield in the iconic form of a hulking, flame-toting humanoid, one equipped with a subliminal projection device that would enhance the morale and righteousness of the Black Hand troops surrounding it. At the time of its deployment, the Purifier was the most powerful vehicle in the Black Hand arsenal. A giant robot walker armed with a laser, shoulder-mounted flamethrower, and small subliminal message device to inspire Nod troops around it. The lumbering robot can even crush infantry and some vehicles beneath its feet. The mech is vulnerable to attacks from the air, however, as it has no anti-aircraft defense. Just like the Mantis, a number of Black Hand troops were wary of using the vehicle, as it was yet another autonomous machine. But Marcion quelled these fears by requiring that each Purifier be blessed by an abbot before stepping foot on the battlefield. Other capabilities that the Black Hand utilize in the field is the ability to scan and see the exact location of enemy power plants through a support power they call Power Signature Scan. They also utilize deception against their enemies by constructing a decoy Temple of Nod. As the name implies, this is a fake temple that fools the enemy into thinking the Black Hand commander has built an actual one. It even uses up power at the base, as well as having its own countdown timer to launch a nuclear warhead. And finally, we get to the most powerful vehicle in the Brotherhood arsenal, the Redeemer.
I live.
While this giant mech is not exclusive to the Black Hand, they do still need to make use of it when going up against other equally powerful enemy vehicles, such as GDI's Marv and the Skrenn's Eradicator Hexapod. The Redeemer itself was originally designed based off plans of the Marv that were stolen from a GDI Reclamator hub. In order for Nod to be able to deploy the vehicle quickly to the battlefield, they used the Avatar mech design as a foundation to further build upon, the result being the largest mech bulker on Earth. Its armament consists of a tri-beam laser weapon on its right hand, which does great direct target damage on the level as that of an Obelisk of Light. It also comes equipped with a device on its back called the Rage Generator. When activated, this device sends out a sort of pulse wave in a wide radius around the Redeemer. Any enemy units caught within the radius of this wave are set into an enraged frenzy, causing them to ignore orders from their commander and attack each other for a short time. And in similar fashion to the Marv, the Redeemer has two nodes that can be garrisoned by infantry, giving the Redeemer a couple of additional weapons. Standard infantry such as Militants, Confessor Cabals, or Awakened give it a machine gun turret. Saboteurs give it a repair node, which automatically repairs damage sustained by the Redeemer. Militant rocket squads give it a rocket launcher, which can target both ground and air vehicles. Black Hand troops give it a flamethrower, which is strong against infantry and base structures. And finally, the Tiberium Trooper gives it a Tiberium Sprayer that functions exactly the same as the flamethrower, except that it has a longer range and can slow down enemy vehicles. Due to the amount of resources required to construct and deploy the Redeemer, only one is allowed per Nod commander. It also requires a special building called the Redeemer Engineering Facility to construct it. Other drawbacks to the vehicle are that it can't generate resources such as the Marv or Eradicator, and having only 2 node slots for infantry to garrison limits the amount of additional weapons it can carry. But it is the fastest moving vehicle of the 3, and has long range with the tri-beam lasers on its right hand. Regardless of its weaknesses, the Redeemer is the embodiment of Kane's will and the destruction of those who stand before him. The last known event involving the Black Hand occurred after the Third Tiberium War, when Kane ordered Legion to regain the Tacitus from the Rocky Mountains complex in North America. Initially, Kane's personal cyborg army, the Marked of Kane, were to be the only ones to retrieve the artifact. However, the forces of the Black Hand's 2nd Armored Regiment showed up to assist them in their fight against the GDI defenders of Zocom and the Steel Talons. Though the Black Hand despised the idea of having to work with the soulless cyborgs of the Marked, they put their feelings against them aside for the greater good of the Brotherhood. With their combined forces, the Black Hand and Marked were able to overcome GDI's defense and reclaim the Tacitus in the name of Kane. The Black Hand stood beside Kane in his prophetic future for humanity from the very beginning. They stood with him as the last line of defense at Temple Prime in Sarajevo at the end of the First Tiberium War, and led by their leader Anton Slavik, they reunited the Brotherhood just in time for his return to the living. And while there was a period after the Second War where the organization gave into the natural human vices of fear and jealousy, causing a schism within the cult itself, they ultimately emerged from that dark time stronger, in both power and faith, going on to once again accomplish the most important missions that Kane could give them during and after the Third Tiberium War. While the newest addition to the Nod army, the Marked of Kane, may be viewed by some as superior to the Black Hand, the one thing that these soulless robots will never understand is over 100 years of true faith, loyalty, and devotion to the Prophet himself. The ones most deserving to stand by Kane's side the day he finally achieves what he's fought so long and hard for: Ascension.